been known for many strange things. A child with sex change.
Merry Christmas!
It's not.
And
Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Welcome back to the Townhouse. This is episode 6, and it's Christmas time because it's snowing.
Still not Christmas time. It hasn't even hit Thanksgiving.
But this is...
Stop. Bah humbug.
Shut the fuck up. Okay.
Damn,
Do we bleep?
we have a Grinch.
Do we bleep ourselves on this?
We don't bleep ourselves.
All right.
Welcome back. This is episode 6. This is Xavier, Anthony, Gavin. After a brief hiatus, we are back for episode 6 of the Townhouse. Anthony, Gavin, what have you guys been up to?
Well, I was on a diet, and that's why we haven't been recording, actually, is because I was too fat to fit in the same room as Anthony and Xavier, so I had to lose some pounds.
Very sad.
That,
Yeah.
and he couldn't drink the beer of the week. Thanks for asking what I've been up to. I've been locked and loaded in Blackwater, avoiding the law for the past week and a half.
Jesus, why is your voice so loud right
Because I'm trying to talk like I'm in the game Red Dead Redemption 2, baby.
now? Did they
So
say
anyway.
baby?
How is
I
Red
see.
Dead Redemption
Yeah, it was like
2? I've actually
Austin
been
Powers
wanting to
in a
play
Western voice.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby.
That was more Austin Powers. But it is pretty fun. I am enjoying it very much. I am currently robbing a train. That is the mission I am currently on that I paused to be with you guys at this very moment.
Yeah, it is not easy to get Anthony off Red Dead Redemption 2 these days.
It is true, and I am not a hardcore gamer, so you heard it here first. This game is literally dope.
But as we saw in South Park, everybody's playing Red Dead Redemption 2, so, you know, who can really fault Anthony?
That is true.
Yeah, I've been doing my fair share of the video games as well. Not Red Dead Redemption 2, although I have been wanting to break that out. I have been playing some Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which has been
Your most
awesome.
anticipated game of the year.
That
Callback
has
to
been.
our old
And not going to go too deep into it, but it has not disappointed. It's definitely up there as one of my favorites.
Damn, and to think, in episode 1, you were saying that it might completely
ruin it.
fall off the wagon as a franchise for not having the perfect,
This is-
Ezio Altair
This is
Connor,
true. That
Living up to the black sail.
experience.
Ooh, is he
yeah,
different?
that negativity lasted for about as long as it took for the load screen
Wow.
to run out, and then the game actually started, and my opinion was totally changed. So that's been a great experience for me. But beyond that, gotten into a new non-video game, new card game that was just released, Keyforge, and
Oh,
introduced that to Gavin.
is that the one
actually
you were
today.
just playing tonight?
That's right. Xavier and I just play tested it a little bit. I guess it's released, so it doesn't count as play testing, but we had our first go at it. It was
Giggity.
pretty good.
I'm
First time around.
personally a fan of it. I look forward to playing it.
I'm a
more
huge
and
fan.
Getting more of an idea.
Anthony,
you have no.
Come on. Last episode you shat on all games that could not be played either naked or at a party.
True.
This first news story comes to us from Inside Edition, which is...
Anthony. Doesn't Gavin do the news stories?
Okay, I'm sorry. Gavin, why don't you take us on these news stories?
No. Anthony chose this one.
I can't.
Xavier.
It's okay. I've been kicked out of my own news story.
Thank you,
No,
Anthony.
stop stealing his thunder. Anthony stole your thunder last time. You know how annoying it is when he interrupts you every...
That's right. And now I'm interrupting Gavin, interrupting you, interrupting me. How do you
Wow,
feel?
that's like interruptception.
That's like 16 interrupts.
Damn, that is interruption.
An interruption within an interruption.
It's like interception.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line.
Who's doing the news today?
Anthony's going to do the first one.
I'll do the first one. I found it. Gavin can do the second two.
I will also vote for Anthony.
Wow, I'm glad we could...
After nominating me originally? Wow.
Okay, so, as I was
Flip-flop.
saying, this news story comes to us from Inside Edition with Deborah Norville. Hello, Deborah. South Carolina dad and... Oh, God.
Damn.
All right.
We're sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry,
we will-
Deborah Norville. Okay, South Carolina dad and daughter charged with incest after child they had together dies. So, basically, a father and a daughter down in South Carolina made sweet love with one another, and they were able to conceive a child. Now, Does this sound something you would see in Game of Thrones?
It sounds like something you'd see in South Carolina.
Yeah, way to fulfill your southern stereotype, whoever this is.
Both Brown, which is, I guess, their last names.
Yeah,
Caitlin Brown.
we really should tread a little more lightly, Anthony. let's pick our words a little better when it comes to last names.
Okay, that is their last name.
Right, because what I'm trying to say is we don't want to butcher last names. If you thought I was implying anything else, you're
Fake news.
You're fucked up.
Okay.
You're
Excuse
wrong.
me. All right, I will just say the two individuals stated that their relationship was consensual and mutual, so they wanted to have this child. However, it did die shortly after it was born.
Do we know why it died?
I have a couple of theories.
Let's hear your theories.
I might be able to guess.
They're all pertaining to genetics and the fact that it was an incestuous parentage. That's about it. I don't think there needs to be any more detail.
Incest is bad.
Incest is bad. South Carolina likes to fulfill its own stereotypes. On that note, we'll move on to our next stereotype of the night. Japanese groom spends $18,000 to get married to an anime hologram. And what I'm seeing on the screen here is he actually married Hatsune Miku, who is a Japanese pop star, just completely virtual, and her voice and songs are generated by machines.
Kind of like Gorillaz, the band Gorillaz.
Sure, yeah, kind of like that.
Okay.
So on the plus side, this is probably a breakthrough. I don't know too many people who have married holograms, but
True.
on the downside, $18,000 to get married to Giffany. Shout out to Gravity Falls. Whoever's seen that might get the reference. But
Yes.
$18,000 to marry ultimately an AI program, and most of it isn't even AI. There's a lot of human input to bring Hatsune Miku to life. Meaning, this guy is probably going to be interacting with some, 35-year-old guy who lives in his mom's basement, but is really good at computer science, who has contributed, a couple thousand lines, or maybe hundreds of thousands of lines to Hatsune Miku's code.
Did you just describe yourself, Gavin?
I know it does sound suspicious that I know all this information like this, but
How did you know exactly the number of lines of code?
I am a computer scientist myself. Somewhat of a computer scientist myself, but no, it's a rough estimate. I mean, I promise I have a girlfriend in real life. She's real, probably. You guys will meet her someday.
She just doesn't go to this school.
Exactly. It's a long distance relationship.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, gosh.
Maybe.
But it seems like, so obviously the hologram wasn't in person with him at the altar when they were saying their I do's, I guess.
Well, it's a hologram.
Yes, but it looks like that he brought a stuffed version of the hologram and married that in place of the hologram.
Oh, so the stuffed, the little plush toy version was the stand-in?
Yes.
At the wedding. Can you have a proxy when you get married? Can somebody stand in and... Can you imagine, one of us is getting married, let's say it was Xavier's wedding and Reba got sick that day. So we have Dan walk up the aisle.
With a wig on.
No, he's wearing a white dress and a veil. Xavier, pulls the veil off, and there's Dan's smiling face.
Hey, how are ya?
But Reba has given written consent for Dan to, make the vows in her place. It's like power of attorney. I think that's how it works, right?
That could work.
I'm not a legal expert, but that sounds about right.
Well, so power of attorney, I work in the financial world where that's actually something that's needed, and it gives you the ability to transact on someone's behalf. So I don't see I don't see how it's so much of a stretch. Obviously we're joking, but it seems like if you give someone the ability to get married for you, that they can technically do that.
At the end of the day, at least us in America, it's just a legal contract. Sure, it might mean something else in certain religions, and different cultural aspects, but at the end of the day, in the eyes of the government, you're married via, a piece of paper that you sign, with a witness who is a licensed minister. And if somebody is allowed to sign on your behalf, then, technically it could have been Dan and Xavier standing at the altar, and Xavier still could have been legally wed to Reba.
It's an interesting...
if Dan had power of attorney.
Thought concept there, yeah.
Wow.
But
if only we could turn back
If
time.
only life was that simple. Huh?
it's crazy the tangents we get on from, Giffany all the way to Dan getting married to Xavier.
Dress.
Which, honestly, that party would be a banger.
Oh, it would. It would be great. Could you imagine the first dance, though?
Wow. Well, I mean, considering at Xavier's wedding, there was a dance-off between Dan and Xavier.
Probably
It was
something
very
like that.
romantic.
It was probably, yeah, I'm just thinking, some sort of jig to the
Maybe
tune of...
Get Jiggy With It by Will Smith.
Na, 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 na.
Get Jiggy With It.
No, what is it? I think you guys were dancing to a Dropkick Murphys song.
Yes, that would
Going back and
definitely be the
forth.
case.
And it was I'm not
They
gonna
broke a
line, it was
sweat.
pretty impressive. They
I
were
broke a
both going
sweat
pretty
watching
hard.
them. I was like, wow, I feel like I'm up there doing the work, but I'm not. It's just my eyes.
It's kind of like Dan with his power of attorney when they went back to the hotel room.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so his power of attorney, Dan, could consummate the marriage.
Oh my god. Wait a second. That could be a loophole for people who aren't quite ready to take it to the next level in their relationship, but still in their whatever religious tradition have to consummate the marriage on their wedding night. You just get power of attorney, especially somewhere in Vegas. I'm sure that could be arranged.
Consummate it with someone else.
And they consummate it on your behalf. Guys, I don't think you
cracked the
realize the
code.
business potential we're coming up with right now. Like, we could literally start a business
Yeah.
where you give someone power of attorney for, 12 hours, 24 hours, and then you do all this shit with them on somebody else's behalf who, maybe isn't into the whole, wedding ceremony thing or whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be a wedding, but yeah.
True.
Business idea, trademark,
Don't
copyright.
steal this. This is
Townhouse
ours.
podcast.
If you come up with this, or if you try to do this, we're going to
Gavin will be under your bed every single night
Sue
for the
you.
next 6 years.
through my lawyer's power of attorney.
And then Gavin will also reside under your bed for the next 6 years and watch you sleep.
Very sad.
True, that is something I'd like to do.
Okay.
He does that too.
But anyway, moving on.
Moving on.
Anthony,
Next,
never again.
Next news item we have is the police lock up angry raccoons drunk on crabapple hooch until they sober up. What's hooch?
I don't know, but I've never heard it used to describe.
A beverage.
Yeah, it's usually something else.
Is it like
It's usually edible in the context that I've heard it, but
Okay.
I won't elaborate.
drunk on crab apples? It makes me think that, these are like old crab apples that maybe like, fell off the tree, have been sitting and, fermenting a bit
Yeah.
just on their own.
Yeah, maybe a lot of rain lately, so they're just sitting in a little puddle there.
Yeah.
And then, so the report was apparently that people thought that the raccoons were rabid because they were acting somewhat erratic, stumbling around their backyards, foaming at the mouth. But that also describes, any of us back in college on a Saturday night. So
True.
So they just had a little bit too much to drink. I find it funny that the cops stepped in and actually locked them up. It makes me...
You think they put him in little handcuffs?
Do you think they put him in the drunk tank
Well,
with
they
like
are-
the other drunks?
can you imagine being locked up, like, one Saturday night? Maybe it was something dumb, disorderly conduct when you're coming out of the bar and, somebody gets on your nerves. You get locked up, you're sitting there, thinking about what you did, and then your
And then they throw-
cellmates are a bunch of drunk raccoons.
Well, they do look like burglars anyway.
I find that terrifying. Just the idea of it. Like, just being thrown in a cell and then, like, you just see, like, 5 raccoons there.
So,
Ooh, yeah.
picture this. Public intoxication, but you're tripping on something. And you get thrown into a cell with raccoons.
Oh, God. That would... I haven't ever been tripping, but I would imagine that would be terrifying.
Yeah.
Especially if the raccoons were already in the cage and it was dimly lit, so all you could see as you got thrown in were these glowing eyes staring back at you.
That's like Alice in Wonderland.
I'll just be honest. You guys have raccoons outside your apartment, and
That is true.
as
It's
I'm
a
leaving
house.
Yeah, it's a house.
as I'm leaving at night, I definitely am extra cautious of moving too quickly around a corner because the last thing I want is to get jumped by a startled raccoon.
Well, what you could do is do what Buddy the Elf would do and try to give it a hug.
You just need a hug.
Just need a hug.
True. I mean,
That's all they need.
I know I was, grinching a little bit at the beginning of the podcast, but it is coming up on the Christmas season, so I will allow that
Thank you.
reference.
Thank you.
That has been allowed by Gavin.
That's right.
The Gavin seal of approval.
All right. Well,
My power of attorney, if you will, over the Christmas season. I bestowed by Christ himself.
All right. Well, I think that does it for news. We're going to go ahead and move on to my favorite part of the podcast, and apparently, according to Gavin, the only relevant part of the podcast.
That's right.
The beer of the week,
What?
which we have finished prior to starting this episode. Very sad.
Yeah, we're pretty hammered.
But beer
just
of the
like those raccoons.
beer of the week today is Samuel Adams, which at least up here in New England
Very
doesn't really
cliche.
need too much introduction. Decent beer, but it's a winter lager, festive bock with warming spices, and I'm a fan of this one. I feel like now every time I go to any grocery store, any place that sells beer, pretty much every brand is doing their own version of the winter lager or the winter beer, and they all say they got spices thrown in there. What are y'all's thoughts on this one in particular?
Y'all, well, I enjoyed this one. I enjoy all the seasonal Sam Adams that come out. This one in particular is definitely one of the better ones, in my opinion. As I was drinking it, I was like, wow, I can't wait for the snow that we're supposed to get tonight because it was putting me into the spirit. The Christmas spirit.
I'm not going to allow that one. Snow does not mean Christmas.
Wrong.
But snow does mean skiing, snowboarding,
No.
snowball fights,
Snowball
the
fights.
naked mile,
Yes.
and so on.
Polar plunge.
Yeah, just
But naked
scratch that
polar
last
plunge.
one. But yeah, for me, this is one of those beers where once I know it's the season, anytime
the
I walk
season.
into a bar, without even looking at the menu, this is the first thing I order, and then maybe I'll take a peek at
Demand.
the rest. I think we've talked about some other beers, and we might see them later on the podcasts, so I won't go into detail. But there are a couple other ones that compete with this pretty well. But as a go-to beer in the winter, I don't think
Can't go wrong.
I don't think you can go wrong with Sam Adams Winter Lager.
So, scale of 1 to 10, Anthony.
I'll give it a 7.9.
Okay. Gavin?
This one is a nice 8.2 for me.
Whoa.
I'm going to give it a
Wow.
7.9.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
How'd you come
I
across
thought he was
that?
going to shoot us down, but this one's a good one.
Yeah, I came to that number because I was sitting here and someone I know mentioned that it was rated a 7.9, and I thought, that's probably right.
Damn.
I feel like this has happened before.
I
in
feel
the
like he's
podcast.
got good taste.
I'm not entirely sure.
We've come to the exact same number before. Me
It
and
might have been
Anthony,
Dan, but
Yeah.
Dan and Anthony.
I haven't matched
Or
anyone
Dan and
exactly
Xavier.
before.
Well, I guess
We'll have to re-listen to our own podcast to get those views up.
True.
We'll do a
Although we
giveaway
don't
to our
wanna
first
become our
Patreon
one-
subscriber.
Oh, yes.
Don't want to become our own one.
I will
Well,
I will draw a picture with our Crayola crayons and sign it, and then I will mail it to you as long as you provide a P.O. box.
Yeah, that's right. First Patreon subscriber, that's you. So get on that.
Excellent. But we're not jumping to that conclusion yet.
Oh.
Wow.
Are we?
I mean, I don't know. Let's see if our one listener decides they want that picture, and we'll go
It'll
from there.
be a very great picture, if you will.
Would it be the biggest and the best picture?
Believe me, it'll be the greatest picture out of every picture that's ever been a picture.
You have the best
Believe me.
pictures?
Yes, I have the best.
All right.
So, something I was wanting to ask you guys about. There's this new Ryan Reynolds Pokemon live action movie coming out.
Detective Pikachu.
Yes.
Okay, so you guys have heard of it then.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I believe
guys
I was
seen-
the one that sent it to you guys.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, Anthony, do you want to go ahead and give us your opinion on this?
Well, I don't know if a person who never played Pokemon growing up should be the one to start us off. I don't have that much of a Pokemon background.
Wow, shameworthy.
Okay. Well, my quick thoughts. Here we go. From someone who's never played Pokemon, I played Pokemon Go for maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks tops. I am intrigued by it. I don't think it's going to be Best Picture worthy.
I don't think anyone's arguing that.
I wasn't expecting Ryan Reynolds to actually be a Ryan Reynolds voice. I thought he was going to put on a certain type of voice, but that threw me off when I first saw the trailer. But in like a funny way, so I was like, interesting. I wasn't expecting it to go like this. But I think it will not do well critically, but fan-wise, I feel like it'll be relatively positive feedback from the fans. Or mixed feedback. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think it's going to get great feedback. I don't think it's going to get great reviews. My problem with it is that Ryan Reynolds, and I'm not breaking into new grounds by saying this, makes me think of Deadpool.
True. I actually was like picturing Pikachu as Deadpool throughout that whole trailer.
And there's graphics out there of Pikachu as Deadpool. So
Pikapool, as it's been dubbed.
So I think it'll be funny because I think Ryan Reynolds is funny in, you know, the sort of character that he takes on in those type of comedic roles. I don't think it's going to be critically acclaimed. I don't think that in general fans are going to respond well to it just because it's not Pokemon in the traditional sense. And you can't take a anime cartoon and make it live action and have people be, at least for the most part, satisfied with it. So I don't think it's going to be particularly well received. That said, I'm gonna watch it. I'm probably gonna laugh, and I'm probably gonna watch it again.
Yeah, I won't add too much more to it, but I think this is something, being a fan of Pokemon growing up and, you know, enjoying Ryan Reynolds' humor, I will go see. And in terms of how people receive it, I think the Ryan Reynolds flavor of humor, if it's anything like Deadpool, if they throw in anything PG-13 or higher, let's say, I don't think it's going to be well received because it's based off of a Nintendo DS game, Detective Pikachu. I'm pretty sure that's what Detective Pikachu was released on. And it's sure for our generation and for about the people who are within about 5 years, give or take, of our age, they might understand the reference and appreciate the movie, but beyond that, it's not necessarily going to appeal to kids especially if it's a PG-13 or higher movie, and it's not going to appeal to people older than us because it's kind of
it came out they were dated.
It's kind of weird to, you know, base it off of, you know, a video game that was a spin-off of the original video game.
Yes.
A live action movie based on a video game that was a spin-off of another video game. So that's my 2 cents. But I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I believe
Very
it
true.
comes out in March, I want to say.
It's gonna be me.
Awesome.
It might be March.
Well, we're all going
I'll
to go
have to
see
be
it anyway.
fact-checked.
But
Oh yeah,
So-
absolutely. And we'll give our final thoughts on it after that point.
definitely.
Yes.
So for our big discussion of the week here, I wanted to go over something that has sort of been on my mind of late, and that's balancing priorities. So just wanted to, you know, discuss how each of us handles, you know, the different priorities of having a busy life. So I mean, I personally I work full time. I have hobbies and things I enjoy doing outside of work, and then I'm in an MBA program. I mean, add into that hanging out with friends, and it's definitely tough to devote adequate time and effort to each individual priority in my life. And I wanted to get your thoughts on, you know, sort of that struggle, as well as what steps you take to find that right balance.
Sure. What I do, I kind of like to plan everything out, plan out my weeks. I like to kind of be organized in that sense, so I know, like, I also work full time every day. But I'm also not taking an MBA program, so I also have a little bit of more flexibility time wise. But I find planning out ahead of time my schedule, my upcoming couple of days, upcoming weeks, like I find if I'm able to organize a list of to do, like grocery shopping or doing laundry, cleaning up, getting gas, going to hang out with friends, making sure I'm at work on time if I'm doing field work, like usually when I'm outside for engineering doing field work, it's different hours than if I'm in the office. So that obviously changes up what my weekly routine would be if it was just an office every day of the week. But I find balancing my priorities, it's kind of like, in a sense, making a to-do list mentally and making sure I have enough time to get other things done. So I would obviously want to do more important, like cooking, all that stuff done before if I were to come home to relax, or making plans with y'all over like the weekend, making sure we know what we're going to do so it doesn't come down to the day and we're still trying to figure out what we want to do, because then that kind of, the time starts ticking away from the hours that we have left to have fun together.
So having a strong scheduling framework is sort of
Yes.
your approach, right?
Correct. I would say having a strong schedule is
And
for myself.
I think what I would add to that, and it's similar in some aspects, but the way I would put it is isolating the independent variables. Things that I can control and schedule, I do that. Taking the choice out of certain aspects of my life, or making the choices very easy. Like what I'm going to wear, for example, every day, it's sort of a queue in my closet where I take the first item out, I wear it, and then it either goes into the laundry or back onto, a hanger at the back of the queue, and then it just sort of filters around and goes in circles. And that's more or less what I do for work. In my free time, I tend to take a little more time, but other things, always having a couple options for a quick and easy dinner on the nights where I come home exhausted, I don't feel like cooking. I don't want to waste time or spend extra money by ordering out, or frantically trying to cook something up while I'm stressed out or tired. So always having those options, and then keeping things on a schedule when I can, just to make it work. Mondays, I do X, Y, or Z. Tuesdays, I see my girlfriend. Wednesdays, we record the podcast, for example. Thursdays, I play Frisbee or go to game night at work, and so on and so forth. There are plenty of things in my life that are consistent enough. So I try to separate those so that when other things do come up, I can be flexible and I know exactly what I have going on. I don't have to check my calendar because one week changes, each week changes, I guess.
So what I'm hearing is you're sort of springboarding off of Anthony's scheduling comment, and then going into a little bit more of streamlining your options.
Exactly.
So that the pull between two separate choices is not taking up time and effort. You know what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I think that decision making, cutting it down and making it easy to do, or almost mindless sometimes, can be very beneficial.
Yeah,
for time management.
I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in on this one, and I'm saying this with the caveat that I'm not necessarily someone who I think has done the best job of balancing all the different priorities. I do also have more things pulling at my attention, being someone who is working full time, job searching, doing an MBA program. I have a wife, friends, hobbies. I have a lot going on, and a lot of things that maybe you guys don't have going on right now. But I would say the approach for me, which I find helps, is giving whatever it is I'm doing my full effort and my full attention. so if I'm at work, if I am hanging out with friends, if I am hanging out with my wife, if I'm, even just playing a video game, that activity has my full effort and my full attention. And I find that I maximize the benefit, whether it's relaxation or absorbing the material that I'm studying in my MBA program. I get the greatest benefit if I just am willing to dedicate my full time, for whatever amount of time it is, to that one single activity. And so for me, it really comes into focusing my time and effort. When I'm working on project A, I am focused entirely on that.
Yeah, and to comment on that a little bit, coming from a computer science background and someone who works in that field, what we would describe that as is context switching. So you're doing the opposite of that, which is you're giving your full and undivided attention to one activity at a time, and that has been shown in scientific studies to be the best way humans operate. So I've read many books on how I can become a better programmer, and just, general self-help books for, being more effective in the workplace and things like that, so that you're not working extra hours on projects and things when you should be, balancing your work and life. Mm-hmm. But humans, when they're focused on a task, it can take anywhere from, 15 minutes to 90 minutes to get into a mental state where they're working at an optimal level, where they're actually working on it and doing it well, distraction free. When you switch between tasks, things like multitasking, or even things that people don't really realize, or it might help, keep them on a task, like listening to music or having TV in the background, it can sometimes help you from getting up and doing something else or context switching entirely. But with humans, that takes you out of the activity that you're actually doing, and that can really hurt the time you spend doing it. So you're not actually optimizing your time, and therefore you're actually dedicating more time than you need to. And I'm sure from a psychological perspective, Xavier can probably speak to that in some capacity.
Yeah, I actually did a study while in undergrad of basically maximizing the use of your time. And what I found in the study I was doing was that using a periodic break system where you could entirely decompress. What I used in my study was social media breaks. So getting on Facebook was what I used in my study. But having a social media break where you can basically totally shift gears for a brief amount of time, not focus on whatever your task was, and then return to your task and dedicate your full effort to it. That actually improved productivity. Basically having that ability to focus and dedicate yourself, and then step away, and then focus and dedicate yourself once again.
Right. So rather than having your phone sitting there on the table next to you and checking it every time it vibrates,
right,
you separate the time out so that you can maximize it while you're doing one thing.
Exactly.
Yes, I do that method sometimes as well.
I'll be honest. I try to stick to what I say, but it's very tough. The pull of the phone just constantly being readily at hand is a major challenge to overcome for sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
And some of the projects I work on at work requires some development, and then I have to test something. And when you're a programmer, you write code, and then what you have to do is called compiling it, where it converts it into a form that can be interpreted or understood by the computer or whatever system you're working with. And compiling, when you're working with big systems, can take minutes or even hours sometimes. Typically 2018 it doesn't take hours, but back in the 90s, it could take days. But for me, even a couple minutes where all of a sudden I've been working really hard on something, I feel like I'm at a good point to test it out, waiting on that thing, I automatically need some activity to fill that gap. And so I'll pick up my phone or, read the news or something. Mm-hmm. And, I really do find that takes me out of it. And it's something that I try to overcome, but it's very difficult because you go from, activity, productivity, and then waiting. And when you're waiting and doing nothing, staring at a screen after being active for so long, your body's used to that information feed, and so you start looking for more information. So that's an interesting aspect. But yeah, I think what Anthony said, scheduling, and then for me, minimizing decision making. I'm not saying become
robotic.
Well, yeah, exactly. Don't become Mark Zuckerberg, where you wear the same clothes every day. You don't have to do that.
Nope.
But minimizing your choices, or giving yourself sort of default options where it's like, I don't really feel like making a choice. I have this thing set aside that I can always go to. That's always good. And then I think what Xavier said, just segmenting your time, focusing all your energy on one thing at a time can really make a difference and maximize and optimize your time. So
it's funny that you mentioned that with with the don't become Mark Zuckerberg, but optimizing your time, because I forget who it was, but there was definitely a CEO who had an article that I read about basically how he maximized his productivity, and what it really came down to him was having a routine, having the things that he does every single day to the point where it was automatic. And I think that a lot of successful people often do have that routine. I know Tom Brady definitely does, where, he did the TB12 method, and basically if you look through that, even just at a very high level, it's all an automatic, planned out activity set that he has every single day of his life.
Diet, exercise, meetings, practice, everything.
Looking at his wife.
That's nice your activity as well, Anthony.
That is right.
Right up there with TB12.
Right. But then you have the opposite extreme, where other people have become successful based on what seems like very sporadic and disorganized schedules, but it does tend to drive them to do crazier things. So the person I'm thinking of as I'm saying this is Elon Musk. Right? This is a guy who, sleeps in the factory that the cars are manufactured in, because he's a perfectionist. He wants every single car coming off the line to be perfect. And then, the next minute he's on a plane going to his other company, launching a rocket out of Florida or something like that. And then he's tweeting on the plane while he's sleep deprived, and bad things might happen. But somehow, there are still people who emerge who seem like they could possibly manage their time better. And I certainly don't claim that I can manage Elon Musk's time better than Elon can, given his accomplishments. But at the same time, you see the various lawsuits and tweets that come out, and you've got to think, like, if there was a little more time to just, clear the head, that maybe some of this stuff could have been avoided. I don't want to get too political, too crazy, with regard to that stuff, but that's a totally different way of managing time. Basically the opposite of Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg in my mind. But he seems to make it work, but neither of those people seem like they have a great work-life balance.
Definitely.
So as much as Zuckerberg might put on social media that he has this like wonderful family life, when he's speaking in a classroom and he says, "I was a human," I mean, I am a human. I was speaking about myself in the past, but I still am a human. You begin to question.
Yeah. They just dedicate all their time to their work. They have none of that downtime. Because it sounds like Elon Musk, his only downtime is when he's on a plane flying from one destination to the next.
Which I guess sort of shifts gears of the discussion a little bit in terms of the balancing priorities. Because, we were talking about it purely logistically, but that kind of leads into the next question of the priorities of sort of social side of things with friendships, relationships. I would lump the hobbies in there as well, and then the professional priorities. So fiscal success, success in your job, that kind of thing. And there definitely is almost a tug of war between the two. and you sort of see with a lot of CEOs, Elon Musk is who we're discussing, where maybe that balance is not necessarily the best. But I mean, what steps do you think you really need to take to make sure there's a balance? Because they're definitely both priorities, but you can't really let one take full precedence to the detriment of the other. Or at least I feel like there's going to be problems if you do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't have the answer to that, but I certainly have an opinion.
Okay.
And that's, if we're looking at these two CEOs, successful people, since, I brought them up and now they're dragged into this, we should have them on the podcast and we can discuss.
Yes. I'm sure they'll love to be invited.
To the Townhouse podcast.
Oh, let them know we have one listener.
That's right.
And we can give them beer. That's
true. But, look at Zuckerberg. If your life is automatic and you're, it sometimes seems like you're a robot, and it sort of shows, obviously it's a joke, but
true.
If you're not making any decisions, what that sort of humanness that you have almost fades away. Like every decision you make is already chosen for you by you in the past.
Yeah.
But you're not making those decisions anymore. So it minimizes that impact you have on a day-to-day basis of, like, exercising your own free will. Like, sure, you made the initial choice, but now you're stuck in this sort of loop. And then, again, the opposite extreme with Elon Musk, where it seems like, he's in one place, then he's in the other place, and all of a sudden he's starting a new company. He answers people on Twitter, and he's committing to all these things, and none of it seems automated. All of it seems like it's a case-by-case basis with him. And when you look at both of those people, neither of them seem to have very much free time on their hands. Now, again, I don't follow Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook, but I do occasionally see the advertisements and things like that. And I know for a fact that he does post videos with his family and things. And what is Facebook except a way to make people think that your life is great, right?
Exactly.
So Facebook, you can only
you can't really say that one person has a better life than the other.
That's true, because they're not posting their failures.
Yeah, but
just their
you've got those two extremes.
Wow. Did you think of that yourself?
Both of them arrive at the same end.
I did not.
But yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in this topic as it relates to certain people who have a lot of influence on the world today, and just as they sort of do end up in a fishbowl, like these CEOs, and there are plenty of others. We could pick anyone, Jeff Bezos or
true,
Jack Ma, but there are plenty of people throughout the world that live their life under constant observation and scrutiny, and they all might have different ways of managing their time. And at the end of the day, especially for the successful people, it seems like no matter what they do, they're always pretty busy. And would you rather have the free will aspect, or would you rather have the chaotic, I'm always making the decisions aspect, or should you find something in the middle?
And the unfortunate reality, and I don't know if this is the case, but it may be the case, that you can't really find a true balance while being successful at one or the other. So, I mean, the major influencers we're talking about are people that have definitely thrown themselves, full into excelling and succeeding in their work. And they're definitely innovators, and they're definitely successful, and they've definitely achieved a lot. And that very well may be to the detriment of the social responsibilities and the social priorities. And then on the flip side, there will be people that we'll never know the name of that have maybe prioritized that social aspect, and we'll never know the name of them because in terms of the success on the business side, they'll never be on the top of Forbes list or anything like that.
Right.
So it very well could be the case that there isn't any true balance, in that the examples you'll see in your life of people that are standing out in one category or the other is because they're standing out in that category to the detriment of the other.
Yeah, that, and I think that rings true, at least in the examples we've brought up. And I think, furthermore, that really says we're balancing priorities, but at the end of the day, I think all of us want to be happy. And so if happiness is a priority, then I think those other aspects of our life should fall in line in such a way that makes us feel at least some satisfaction in it and gives us joy.
Where would that balance fall for you, Anthony? In terms of the happiness aspect.
Well, damn, I just want all my stuff to get done on time so I can get back to Blackwater and start
robbing more trains.
Damn. And so starts the next South Park episode.
Exactly.
Yeah, really.
No, as long as I can...
I'll be honest, you make me want to play Red Dead Redemption 2.
Well, it is a great game. I highly recommend it. Maybe Reba will get it for you for Christmas.
Maybe.
Or the Thanksgiving turkey. We'll leave it in your little cornucopia.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, if Reba listens to our podcast.
Does that happen at Thanksgiving?
If she does listen to this, she probably hates us.
She doesn't.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah, gosh, like I said, we only have the one listener, but yeah, I've asked her several times to give it a listen, and she has not even bothered, not once, and she has an hour drive to work every day.
Sad.
Wow.
All of ours are under an hour.
You got to use reverse psychology. That's what I did, and it seems to work on all the people I've told not to listen to the podcast. So now we've got multiple listeners, but it's really only one, and you know who you are.
The OG listener.
That's right. Can we give a name?
Shout out.
No names.
Okay.
Sad.
Maybe if we get written consent. It is 2018, so
Maybe
it's always required to be written.
That's true. That is totally true.
We'll have to do a signature check too, just to make sure.
Make sure that it's an authentic
We'll make sure,
signature.
yeah,
For
and
sure.
also to make sure that he doesn't have a power of attorney, or she.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, because
See,
they
it's
might do
been-
it on somebody else's behalf.
Exactly.
That might look weird for us to be,
Exactly.
shouting out somebody else
Very
True.
on
when
behalf of
they're-
somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Down we go into the rabbit hole.
But I think that brings it full circle. Does that do you guys feel like we've had sufficient discussion on that balanced priorities? Any final thoughts on that?
No,
I think we've covered
I think we're good.
everything.
I may have repeated myself a few times, but only to drive home the point that
Just really.
there's that spectrum, and
Yeah, this has definitely
It's
been
all
something
about
that
the
I've been looking forward to discussing on the podcast. So I appreciate you guys having this discussion. I think that we definitely have gleaned some insight from it, so that's been good. But this has been episode 6, so we're back at it, and I think that wraps it up for us. You guys about done? Any final thoughts, Anthony?
No final thoughts. Just stay warm in these cold times coming up.
It's true. Yep. It's as I mentioned at the beginning, it's snowing outside. It's New England, so have a little bit of a tough drive home, but that's pretty much par for the course.
yeah, and depending on when you're listening to this, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Or happy holiday season as well.
Happy
later
holiday
on.
season, but we'll definitely be back
And
before too far into December.
And if you're listening in 2019, whatever month it is, hopefully it's going well. Happy summer almost.
Yeah, happy happy whatever holiday is that month. We got MLK, we got President's Day.
Exactly.
March has St.
St. Patrick's Day.
There's Easter.
So to conclude, happy well wishes. This is Xavier,
This is Anthony.
This is Gavin.
and this has been the Townhouse. Have a good night.